This is Hannibal from the HannibalTV.com, and today we're doing a special Skype Great North Wrestling podcast with the Canadian Rebel StarBuck himself, Michael Majalahti, who actually lives in Finland now and is getting ready for a massive launch of a promotion he's involved with called Slam Wrestling.
That's right, Slam Wrestling Finland, man. It's not even a promotion; it's a sales service. It's like the thing is, I'm only looking to basically do one show on my own, like at my own risk with my own money. And after that, all I want to do is just sell. I want to sell shows all around Finland, all around the Baltics, the Nordics of Europe. That's really what I don't want to spend money anymore. I'm done with it. I got 25 years in the business. I'm done with it.
I kind of know how you feel there because I feel the same way about promoting. And just before we started, is St. Patrick's Day today? Do they celebrate that in Finland?
No, geez, no.
Okay. I suppose because you're part of a band called the Stoner Kings, you're probably more of a weed person than beer person. Oh, there's someone in the background. Who do we have in the back?
Who do we got? That's my wife.
Okay.
But no, actually, I'm not a weed guy. It's like Stoner Kings. I think it's a misconstrued name. A lot of people, of course, because of the stoner, like a Cheech and Chong kind of thing, they misconstrue it. But for me, it's more like the Stone Age, right? I mean, I'm drug free. I don't drink even. If I drink, it's only like a glass of red wine here or there. Or if I'm getting sick, I'll use some 60 proof or 70 proof just to gargle with. But I'm not a drinker. I'm not a party guy. And that said, I'm a very serious athlete. I've been an athlete since the age of 15. And that said, I mean, it's like I just try to take care of my health and whatnot. So Stoner Kings as a name is more so homage to. Actually, the name came from back in 2000. Josh Homme from Queens of the Stone Age. They put out their first album. I really like the cover with the chick, the Russ Meyer kind of like, the big tits and everything. I like that. So, and I thought, well, that's a kind of a goofy name. You got a bunch of guys in the band. It's called Queens of the Stone Age. Are they like gay or something, or what's the gimmick?
Yeah.
And then I thought, if there's a queen, there must be a king. And then I thought, Stone Age, stoner rock, queens, king, Stoner Kings. It just came to me. And my concept with the band was like to actually try to do like pro wrestling in musical form on stage. So as vivid and as visual as possible, really in your face and really bombastic, as a live band. And I think we achieved that. So, we got a lot of haters. At least we did back in the day.
Well, the artwork is pretty good. I think you do the artwork for the band too. I was impressed with that.
All right. Yeah. I'm the artist. Yeah, that's correct.
So you're an artist, you're a singer, you do voiceovers for cartoons, and you're a wrestler. Anything else?
Well, yeah, I'm a personal trainer. Been a personal trainer now for 14 years in 11 different countries. The voiceovers also, I mean, I do like B2B, B2C, and export here in Finland. I mean, I'm probably maybe the most utilized native North American English speaking voiceover artist here in the country. At least I'm at the top of it. Yeah, and it's like I do like voiceovers for like Netflix series, the animated ones, and then I do just general voiceovers for companies just that want to do international business.
And you've also been a announcer for WWE in Finland, I understand.
Yeah, 6 years. Yeah, between 2009 and 2015, I was the voice of WWE in Finland. Yeah, that's correct.
And I understand, did it already happen, or are you going to make an appearance for them? I thought I saw something on your social media saying you were going to do something at one of their events.
Yeah, it's coming up. It's on May the 10th in Helsinki. SmackDown Live is coming here after 10 years, after a 10-year absence, and they chose me to be their, I guess, domestic. How could you say? It's like emissary.
Okay.
So, I'm the guy here in Finland. I mean, if you're going to do something with pro wrestling in this country, I'm pretty much the guy to do it to go through.
You're the Ludvig Borga of today.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hate to be brash, but I'm more than the Ludvig Borga of today. I mean, it's like Tony Halme's career was 7 years. Mine's been 25. No, there's a difference.
Was he considered a babyface in Finland?
Well, yeah, to some degree, I would say so. I think that Tony was. I mean, he was outspoken. I mean, he was kind of like the anti-hero here, because the thing is that
Yeah,
he was kind of like so brash in his statements, and he was so arrogant in the way that his entire shtick he went about it, that he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But by the same token, he was so big and so intimidating that it's like, you just wanted to like the guy. So there was something about him that like resonated, especially with the Finns, with the Finnish people. And that said, mm, I think that his star appeal here in Finland, it didn't translate all that like strongly when he was with Vince as Ludvig Borga, because the thing is that, like, first of all, when has Finland ever been a global threat, like let's say Russia? Like never, right?
right.
So you got a heel from Finland who's talking partially in Finnish and trying to get heat. And so why should people hate this guy? They don't even know what Finland is. They're like, is Finland somewhere like they think it's somewhere like near Iceland or something. At least in the States, that's the general sentiment. People don't know their geography. So
Right.
yeah. Anyway, but Tony's charisma was more so like a Finnish thing. He was really more popular with the Finns and the Finnish contingent than with, let's say, the North American mindset. So even in Japan, I mean, he was fairly popular there for New Japan, but he was never on the level of the Doctor Deaths or people like that as far as the Gaijin talents go. He never transcended that to that point.
Right. And he also had that one UFC fight against Randy Couture too,
Oh yeah, I
in the
remember
early days. Yeah.
that. Yeah, that's
That
right.
was pretty interesting. I think Rick Bassman booked him in that.
Oh really?
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
because I remember he had that reputation as a big time boxer, but I guess maybe the MMA he didn't quite get the grappling aspect of it. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, he was more like a slugger. I think that Tony. I mean, the thing is, he really wasn't like per se a boxer either. I mean, he just put on a pair of gloves and just started swinging at the fences. That's
Right.
that's like legitimately what he did. I mean, people in Finland to this day, they don't hold him to be a boxer. I mean, he did sell out the old Helsinki Ice Hall twice as a boxer in the main event, but he wasn't a boxer.
So
So,
you are, of course, Canadian. You're from Thunder Bay. I first heard about you from a
oh no,
mutual friend
Timmins,
we have. Yeah.
Timmins.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
maybe you can tell us about your background now, like if in Canada, and how you became a wrestler.
Well, the thing is, I was born in Timmins, Ontario, so that's a mining town. Then
Shania Twain was born there,
Shania
right?
Twain, that's
Yeah.
right, Shania Twain town. Back in 1973, and my father's a Pentecostal minister, so he moved to Finland, or from Finland to Canada with my
Right.
mom back in 1972, and to be a pastor for Finnish immigrant communities. And basically, the gimmick was that he would move around quite a lot around North America during his tenure there. When I was born there, we lived in the same place for 6 years. That was the longest time we lived anywhere, 6 years at a time. Yeah. Anyway, we moved to Thunder Bay, and I was like six at that time. Then from Thunder Bay to Calgary, and by that time I was 9 years old. From Calgary back to Thunder Bay. By that time I was 12 years old, or 11 or 12, I think. And then from Thunder Bay to Fitchburg, Massachusetts, back in '87. So it's like almost every 3 years we'd move, and then from Fitchburg we moved back to Canada in 1990, and it was Sudbury, Ontario at that point. And we were there for a bit. Then
Always the cold places.
yeah, I don't know what the gimmick was there, but there was something. I mean, it's my father's calling, so we went, where he had his pastoral commissions and his duties and whatnot. Then I moved out to Calgary in 1992, the beginning of '92, right in January, right at the beginning of January. I went to the Alberta College of Art because I'm an artist. I'm a graphic artist by trade. I hated it. Absolutely despised going to art college. Just too many flaky, tutti fruities hanging around. And my professor just didn't like me at all. So I was there for like one semester. That's 4 months, and the interest rates were like 18%. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to stick around here. I'll be paying this out my ass till I'm like 60. So I figure I'm going to split. I quit after the first semester. Didn't want to go back, and then I was just broke. I was like living on rent, and my parents had saved up from my father's meager pastoral salary, like a post-secondary education fund, and that dried up in a half a year. So just people think that pastors, these preachers, are like money, mongers or whatever, like trying to swerve their congregations out of copious amounts of cash. It's not the truth. I mean, my father is a man of very meager means, and that money that he had saved up over 18 years for me dried up inside of 6 months. Wow. Well, I had to find a job. So my dad said, either son, you got to find a job, or then you got to come back home. That's 3,000 kilometers away, So I said, well, I'm going to try to find a job. I did. I landed this job at this bottled water company in Calgary called Alberta Bottled Water, I think it was. Anyway, I drove water around town, and then it was the fall of 1992, late summer, 92, and I drove water to this one taxi establishment. It was like in the middle of this industrial area, where right near the Hart Brothers Wrestling School. And there was this guy running the taxi company, and these pictures of wrestlers, black and white pictures of wrestlers up on his walls. And I asked the guy, I said, well, why do you have pictures of wrestlers up on your walls? And he said, well, I used to be a manager for Stu Hart Stampede Wrestling. I said, really? What's your name? He said, Abu Weasel.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, Karachi Vice. And I thought, okay, that's cool. Wow. Okay. So then I said, well, is there any wrestling right now in Calgary? He said, nope, but there's a new promotion starting up this fall. It's going to be called Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling, and the guy running it, Steve DeSalvo, and the other guy's Beef Wellington. Biff Wellington, who's Chris Benoit's old tag team partner from Stampede. And he said, if you want, I'll put you in contact with the guys. I'll give you their contact information. Then, you just, see if they're going to take your pitch or whatever. Well, then I called up DeSalvo. I said, well, my name is Mike, and I'm an artist, right? This is my pitch back in the day. That's like all I had to offer. I was broke. I was living hand to mouth. I wasn't like built or nothing back then. I was skinny. I'd been lifting weights for a few years, but still I was rather skinny. I had no training. Just basically a hardcore mark looking to get in the business. And I did manage to convince Steve DeSalvo that I come down to his realty office. He was working as a real estate agent. That I come down to his real estate office, and then he'd interview me, right? Well, when I showed up, it's like I think that he didn't really expect me to show up. I think that it was like he was just trying to somehow get rid of me. And I just showed up out of the blue with this briefcase in my hand with all my artwork. And I was sitting there after hours in his office. He's like locked in his little cubicle and behind glass windows. And he doesn't want to take me. He's like, everybody else has left the office, just me in the waiting room and him in his cubicle. And the funny thing is then that, well, finally he realizes, he's got to he's got to face the music now. So either he's got to tell me to take a hike, or then he's got to ask me to come in for the interview. And then he asked me to come in. I come into his office, and I say, well, yeah, this is what I do. My name's Mike. I got I'm an artist, and maybe I can draw pictures of the wrestlers for your weekly programs or something. The thing is that that's not what he saw in me. What he saw was what he heard was my voice. And he said, well, we can use you as a ring announcer. And that was my break in the wrestling business. And then he passed me on to Beef Wellington and Shane Bauer, his real name. And yeah, back then, my first gig for Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling it was the fall. I think it was September '92, if I remember correctly. And they had a TV taping for a local Calgarian television little company, whatever it was, the same night. And Steve DeSalvo was on color commentary, and he had some local Calgarian actor that was doing commentary with him, and the guy didn't know jack shit. I mean, the guy was just hopeless. And DeSalvo, he's losing his cool. I mean, we're in the middle of the broadcast. He says to me, he looks over to me and he says, "Come here." And he got rid of the other guy, and he had me sit in for the rest of the taping on color commentary with him. So that was my break in the business. First ring announcer, same night, commentator.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I guess you got hooked up with Jericho and Lance Storm and all them at some point.
Well, the thing is, they were all working in Calgary back then. It was Lenny St. Clair, Firebird Brett Como was there, Lance Storm, Chris Jericho. We had a lot of guys coming and going, and we had Chip the Firebreaker from WCW there for a while, and Carl Moffat, Jason the Terrible. We had a lot of guys.
And Lenny St. Clair, that was Leatherface, right?
No. Lenny St. Clair was Dr. Luther.
Dr. Luther, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
he had some success in Japan, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then we had Mike Awesome there.
Wow. I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Mike Awesome was there. Yeah, that's right. Let's see who else was there.
So was there regular shows was there like a regular circuit to have these guys?
Every single Friday night at the Victoria Park Civic Center. I would drive down in my Honda Civic. This beaten up old Honda Civic is falling apart. I'd be in my suit and tie and everything. I was so scared. Every single Friday night I was driving down. My hands were shaking on the wheel. I was trembling as I would drive down. That's how scared I was. But it was time to face the music. You want to get in the wrestling business, man, you got to put yourself out there and make it count, right? Maximize your minutes. That's what I did. I got in there, did the job, and I was damn good at what I did. I mean, I emulated Gary Michael Capetta. Ladies and gentlemen, this match, one fall with a 15-minute time limit. Right? So that's what I would do. I'd beat Gary Michael Capetta Jr., whatever the fuck it was, right? But that's what brought me to the pay window. And I was, I became valuable to the company because the people liked me. And Carl Moffat took a liking to me. In '93, I think it was Wednesday nights, but he would take like the green guys and the guys that needed like the less experienced guys, and he trained them in the ring, like once a week. And he said to me, "Hey Mike, if you want to come down, I can train you too, right? You just join the group." And that was like an open, window of opportunity right there, open invitation. So I bid at it. I just jumped right in like a fish in the water and got my ass handed to me. He was like beating me up, and I was so black and blue, and I was like literally hurting for certain. But it was really an old school education. I mean, like Carl Moffat especially, all of his headbutts, all of his kicks, all of his forearms, everything they hit, there's no air between those, man. It's like the old school way of toughening you up and seeing if you're up to par. And I appreciate that to this day. I mean, the guys that I train, the girls that I train here in Europe, I've been training now people in 6 different countries since 2003. And I treat them the same way. I lace into them. I lay into them, man. And if they can't take it, just go back home. Just go back home. You don't have to be there, right? Nobody's a special snowflake, not in my class. So, and then Lance Storm, I became training partners with Lance in '93 at a local gym in Calgary called The Gym. Right. And we went like 3 times a week. We'd go in and hit the weights. And then one day Lance says to me, "You know what? I see the passion that you have for pro wrestling. And if you want, I'll train you." And he never asked for a penny of my money, never asked for any financial reimbursement whatsoever. And out of friendship, he trained me because he had a guy from Australia coming on the off season of the Hart Brothers camp who wanted to get trained for pro wrestling. He needed a sparring partner for this guy. And and both of us were starting from zilch, from zero. So from the ground up. And I jumped at it, man. I jumped at it right then and there.
Wow, so you're not surprised that he's gone on to be to train some of the wrestlers from today at his school in recent years?
No, Lance is a hell of a coach. I mean, he's one of the best in the world. I mean, if you want to make it in the wrestling business, I mean, I think that anybody could say that out of all the guys out there teaching today, I think in the top 10 worldwide, Lance is in there.
Right. And I think he's now going to be an agent for Impact Wrestling too.
Really?
I know they're using them at the next tapings. So I noticed you did put that video out of Chris Jericho talking about your company a couple days ago that we posted on this channel. What's your background with Chris Jericho?
Well, back in '92, I mean, I got to know Chris, and actually, it was like before I got my break in the wrestling business. Uh, I was thinking of ways to get in. That's the whole thing. It's like I had this. I was considering like, what's my angle? How am I going to get into the business? Because like I said, as a hardcore mark, but still I had ambition, and I really knew that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to get into the wrestling business. And then when I was taking art classes at the Alberta College of Art, I had to take a secondary class in like photography. So I had to buy a camera, and I was taking photos like every like now and then and whatnot. Then I heard they were running, I think it was like in Etobicoke or something, Alberta. They were running this small little independent card, and I think it was Randy Rudd and Steve Gillespie promoting it. And Chris Jericho was in the main event. It was Chris and I think Kenny. Was it Ken, the guy who used to do jobs on WWE Superstars, Ken Johnson. So it was, yeah, Ken Johnson and Chris Jericho against a couple other guys, and that's when I met Chris. And the thing is, I pitched because I heard that Gillespie and Randy Rudd were running the show. I got a hold of these guys. I mean, I'd just call anybody and anybody. I wasn't scared to pick up the phone. I just go for broke. And I said, yeah, I'm a photographer, right? Well, I mean, I was just like maybe for a couple of 2 or 3 months into photography classes at the Alberta College of Art. I didn't know jack shit, but still, I mean, anybody can be whatever they want, right? Just pitch it the right way and you can paint a picture. I said, I'm a photographer. I can come down with my friend and shoot photos for you at the show. So I showed up with my friend Rob, who was a much more experienced photographer, and we shot photos, and I got to know Chris there. And Chris, we chatted it up in the dressing room and stuff, and right away we understood we both love heavy metal music. We both loved like Halloween and Gamma Ray and Iron Maiden and stuff like that, right? So we hit it off like right away on that note because it was the music that brought us together. And then I kept in contact with Chris. I think Chris gave me his contact infos at that point, and this would be the summer of '92. And yeah, we stayed in contact, and then just on and off. I mean, I had like no reason really to call him, but then when that Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling started up, then Chris started wrestling for them, and then I got to be friends with Chris. And every once in a while I'd go train with him too at the gym, and sometime go to his place where he was living with this older couple. He was boarding, and we'd listen to like heavy metal music and shit like that. So that's kind of like that was our common thing. The music brought us together.
I see.
And for my first match in January 7th of 1994, Chris Jericho gave me my first pair of wrestling boots, which I think were the very first pair that he ever owned. He gifted them to me, kind of like what Dynamite Kid did to Chris Benoit back in the day, right? Right? Same thing. He gave me his old pair of boots. He said, "Keep them. That's start you out on your journey." And he lent me a pair of his old Sudden Impact tights for my first match.
Wow.
Yeah, that was my break in the wrestling business. My first match, January 7th in 1994. It was against Lance Storm. 7 minutes dead on the nose. Lance pinned me with a jackknife powerbomb. Float over bridge, and but still, it was the second best match on the card, is what the boys said. The main event was Chris Jericho and Biff Wellington, and we were underneath, and it was the second best match on the card, which I have to credit completely to Lance. It was like, I only wrestled to my limited ability, and Lance made me look good, and got some psychology going, and it was pretty good.
What was going on at that time that the Hearts weren't running much? Because it seems like that Rocky Mountain Company was running, but there wasn't much of the Hearts training people.
No, geez, no, you know what? I think the Hearts just didn't want to be bothered anymore. I think they just let their name hang around, and I think Ed Langley was running things at the end, and Ed hated my guts.
You don't hear much good about Ed Langley, though, even when I was in Calgary.
No, well, Ed. Well, I don't want to get into it. there's some
He's not
person.
worth talking about anyways, because no one listening to this will know who he is.
Yeah, well, the thing is that Ed Langley, there's stuff that I could say which I just won't say because I don't want to desecrate his memory or anything like that. But by the same token, I just never got along with him. He never liked me, and that's water under the bridge. It's all fine. But yeah, so like in the beginning, Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling was Biff Wellington and Steve DeSalvo. DeSalvo dropped out rather quick. Then it was Beef Wellington's company. After that, it was, I think, Wellington and Ed Langley to a certain degree, if I remember correctly. And then Carl Moffat came in, and he took the book. And Carl ran it for a while. He was like the man in charge. And then Ed took over again. So when I was there right at the end, when I had my first match, it was Ed Langley running things.
Was Rick Bogner, I think his name is, the fake Razor Ramon, was he around in those days?
Yeah, he was there too. Yeah.
How was he?
I don't have many recollections. He was a big guy, but I don't have recollections of him.
Yeah, you don't hear much about him, but he did have a memorable role, even though not in necessarily a good way.
Yeah.
So I guess you ended up coming back to Europe, or you coming to Europe, I guess, at some point. How did you end up back over there?
Well, it was like the mid-90s. We had a terrible recession in Eastern Canada, and Ontario was suffering rather badly. And it was I was driving bakery goods around town in Sudbury for this Finnish bakery company, and business was not all that good. I mean, I was on a part-time salary. My parents, my father actually, he burned out in his pastoral job because he got this stomach bacteria, this E. coli or whatever the heck it was called, some kind of bacteria in Florida. He got it like a year earlier, and it was some buffet or whatever he was eating at, and then he was like knackered for a year. Every day for a year, he'd have the runs. So it's like, diarrhea every single day. If you know anything about having diarrhea, you know that it completely wastes your body because all the liquids get drained, right? So the thing is that you're withering when you have diarrhea, especially prolonged diarrhea. Now, he had diarrhea every single day for 365 days a year.
That's
right?
terrible.
Yeah, and the doctors couldn't figure it out, get it under control. Like what's eating the man alive? So he like burned out his pastoral job because his job was 6 days a week. His free day was Tuesday, which he would go out like hunting and fishing. But outside of that, he burned out. And he said, "Well, listen, he's gonna go back to his homeland, Finland, for like a half a year, maybe a max a year, just to maybe try to get his body back under control. Maybe the Finnish doctors can help or whatever. But he can't do the pastoral thing anymore because he's wasted."
Yeah.
So because of the recession, I thought, well, either on a part-time salary, I get myself another place now. I go and live on my own because I was living with my folks because the economy was so bad back then. So I was living at home for a bit. So either I find myself my own place and then get like a second job as, let's say, maybe a bouncer at a nightclub or something like that. And I have this thing where, like, I detailed this in my book. It's called Battleground Valhalla. It came out a couple of years ago through Crowbar Press in the U.S. But
Scott Seal wrote it, right?
Yeah, Scott. No, I wrote it myself. Scott only proofed it. I wrote.
Oh, okay, because I've seen that book when I've seen Scott at the various conventions. Because of course he did Tony Atlas's, Nikita Koloff's, and yours is always right in the display with all of those guys.
That's cool. That's good. Because the thing is that, anyway, I wrote the book, no ghostwriter from beginning to end. It was, anyway, it's all mine. But I detailed in that book that I have insomnia. Since the age of 17 I've had this terrible, taxing trial with insomnia that I just can't seem to beat. To this day, I'm 45 now, and I still haven't been able to beat the demon of insomnia. So, and I figured that working nights, if I were to get a second job as a bouncer, would be the worst thing for my insomnia. Because I mean, even if I'm not sleeping, at least when I am sleeping, it's dark because I can't sleep when it's light. Right?
Yeah.
my sensory system just wakes up when there's like daylight. It's terrible. It's like, I can't sleep when it's light. I can sleep when it's dark somehow. Now, so then I figure, well, so either I get myself a bouncing job and, just stick around and then just scrounge my scraps, or then I take and I just go to Finland with my folks for half a year to a year and then just come back when the economy bounces back.
Were you wrestling at all at this
Yeah,
point? Because I know
yeah, it was. Yeah.
Oh, in Toronto or Sudbury areas, or
I know I was working around. I'd been working for Don Callis and Tony Condello and IWA.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I was working around Ontario and Quebec. I was working in Michigan for what's the name of the promoter? His name was Malcolm Monroe, black guy. Actually,
Okay.
Malcolm, my first 2 years in the business, he treated me like his own son. And it spoke volumes, because the thing is, I mean, Detroit was not a good town, right? And we were in Lincoln Park, Michigan, which is like a suburb in Detroit. Bad part of town, man. It's like they had bars on the windows of the Dairy Queen, right? So it's like jail cells, right? Anyway, but Malcolm, because his co-promoter was my karate instructor. I was taking a Goju-Ryu karate at the time. My karate instructor, my sensei, was 1994 World Karate Champion Darren McGuire. And Darren McGuire was good friends with Malcolm Monroe's running mate, his co-promoter, because his co-promoter was also a karate sensei in Detroit. So I got along really good with the office because of that. Malcolm Monroe's son, who later went on to wrestle and promote in Detroit, I forget his wrestling name, but it was Malcolm Monroe Jr. or whatever it was. But still, he when he was a young boy, I mean, he really liked me for whatever reason. I don't know why. I mean, he just liked me, right? So Malcolm, I guess, took a liking to me because his son liked me and because his co-promoter liked me, and he paid me better than any other promoter 2 years into my career.
Wow.
My second year. Yeah. So that's how I got started back then. So so come around. So it was 1996. It was June of '96. Finally, my dad said, "Listen, son, we're taking off. We're going to be going to Finland. I mean, so what do you want to do?" I said, "Well, okay, I'll come with you." And I figure I'd just be here for half a year max. Then I'd go back to Canada. Well, I just ended up sticking around, and I started my own business 4 months into living here as a graphic.
Was that a wrestling business, or was that
graphic arts? Graphic arts.
Okay.
Illustration.
Awesome.
So, I didn't start wrestling. I didn't start the business of wrestling here in Finland until 2003.
Okay.
Yeah, it took
because
a while.
was there much wrestling out there before?
No, they had strongmen and these bodybuilders, that would, I don't know where they got their schooling. It was because it was really backyardish in the way that it was presented. It was like guys just doing 3 moves over and over and over. There's a headlock, a clothesline, and a body slam. That's all they knew how to do. And then it just punch and kick. They're stiffing the living shit out of each other too. But anyway, the thing is that they had this homemade ring. It was I think it was almost maybe 40 centimeters off the ground or whatever it was. So it was really low based, and it had the ring post falling in because the supports underneath and the centrifugal the force of the ropes pulling the ring inward.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. It was terribly built. They didn't know what they were doing. But the guys, they were going to these strongman contests and to bodybuilding events and stuff like that, and they were holding these wrestling matches, these mock wrestling matches, in this ring, and there were 4 guys, and Tony Halme was one of them. Then a few bodybuilders, and then this one strongman here in Finland. They were doing as a 4-man team. So there's a match on YouTube that you can find to this date, which you can see. I was the referee in that from 1997. It's Tony Halme against a guy called Boogie Commando. Boogie Commando. He's the former 7-time heavyweight bodybuilding champion of Finland.
And Tony Halme, that's Ludvig Borga for anyone watching this that needs the reminder.
That's right. You can find the match on YouTube, in 3 different parts. So Boogie Commando versus Tony Viking Halme.
So you started going to Japan at some point too, right? Was that
2010.
Okay, so that was quite a bit down the road then.
Yeah, I mean, I had wanted to go earlier, but I couldn't find it. I couldn't get a break. I couldn't make inroads to people that were connected with the office because Japan is very special. For anybody watching who doesn't know, Japan is a referral. Japan works on referrals. Okay, I don't know how it is today because you got so many of these damn marks, these young gaijin kids like that are new to the business, and they're buying their own 3-month, they're paying their own 3-month visa to stay in the country, sleeping on dojo floors and getting paid next to nothing, or working for free just to say that I've been to Japan, right? That's the way it's been now for about 5 years, and it's just shit.
There's less and less full-time jobs out there for foreigners.
There's not. Hey, count the foreigners who have a full-time or who are there like as regulars. It's Harry Smith, it's Lance Archer, okay? It's Joe Doring, and maybe 1 or 2 other guys that are there like on a regular basis as the stalwart gaijins. All those guys have personal sponsors that help foot the bill and bring them there. Okay.
Okay, I didn't know about that.
Okay, but that's the way the business works. Okay, that's the way the wrestling business works this way. Now the thing is that every wrestling company in Japan works as a it's basically it operates on sponsorships, on sponsors. Okay, New Japan is the same. It's a big card company that owns New Japan, right? Bushido, whatever it's called, Bushido Road or Bushi Road, whatever it is. Anyway, but every company, their lifeblood is their sponsor or sponsors. The only company in Japan that has solid sponsorship backing to a degree that they can bring in anybody they want because they have a limitless bank account is New Japan Pro Wrestling. Everyone else is barely scraping by. New Japan's the only company on television there, and it's in the middle of the night. Right? It's like at 2 o'clock or 2:30 in the morning. A terrible time. And back in the day, it was on prime time, right? Back in Inoki's day, it was on prime time.
Right. Yeah.
So my point
and
here
Baba's show was on prime time too, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Both shows were.
Yeah, they're both on. Yeah, head to head on prime time. So now you have New Japan on in the middle of the night. It's the biggest company in the country, but all the other companies are just scraping by, and they don't have the visibility outside of maybe like YouTube or their own possible network or whatever they might have. They're not on television, so they're not going to be bringing in any foreign talents and footing the bill when you got these marks working for free, sacrificing their bodies for next to nothing, paying their own 3-month visas to stay in the country. So as long as you got guys like this, they're killing the business, and they've been killing the business now for over 5 years. And I think like when I made it in Japan in 2010, I was like at the tail end of that run where I was being paid to come in. You know, I was being put in the hotel. I was being paid a decent sum for my matches. I was right at the tail end of that. Right around 2013, at the latest 2014, the shit hit the fan. And that's when the whole thing just like the entire backbone of what Japanese pro wrestling used to be more or less collapsed. Because when Muto broke off and went with the Wrestle One, and he quit All Japan, he took half the roster with him. And then they had a sponsor, and then they made that deal. In the beginning, it was like super promising. They made that deal with TNA at the time, and they thought that the TNA business would like turn around like things for them in Japan, right? That it would like actually boost their business. It didn't do a damn thing. The TNA deal with Wrestle One didn't do a damn thing for their business.
Because you were in Wrestle One, for those that don't know, right? You were in Smash, Wrestle One, Diamond Star Wrestling most recently.
Yeah. But I did one show for Wrestle One. Yeah, but
okay.
And that was for Akira Nagami's 30th anniversary show. But
okay.
my point being here that it's basically the way that Japan works is you need to have somebody vouch for you. Somebody put their name on the line for you, right? If they're going to pay to bring you in, you better be worth it. Somebody else has to put their name out there for you, saying, I know this guy. I can vouch for them. They're a damn good guy on top of being like a damn good wrestler. So therefore, that might open the door for you. But there's like fewer and fewer and fewer places all the time right now to work in Japan and make money anymore. I mean, it used to be the place where you could make money on 8 tours a year when Dr. Death, Terry Gordy, Stan Hansen, Bruiser Brody, back in the day, all these guys doing 8 tours a year, 3 weeks at a time, making great money. Well, it's a thing of the past, man. Thing of the past.
Right. What do you think of the current New Japan champion? I don't even know his name, but I was looking at him, and he's not very physically impressive looking.
Are you talking about the Australian guy or the New
Yeah.
Zealand guy? The guy from New Zealand, right? Switchblade Jay White.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I mean, he's New Japan born and New Japan bred. I mean, he broke into the business in the New Japan dojo. So the thing
Okay.
is, so if you think of like who are they going to go with when they choose to go with somebody after like Kenny Omega leaves them, after like everybody else goes to AEW, and Cody Rhodes is gone and all these other guys are gone and the Young Bucks are gone. It's kind of like Stu Hart and the Von Erichs back in the day. Who are you going to count on when everybody else is going to leave you? You're going to count on family, right?
Yeah.
That's why the Harts were always champions in Calgary. That's why the Von Erichs were always champions in world class, right? That's the way the business goes. So
Right.
if you look at Japan, if you think like why is Jay White the guy on top now? Well, consider how he got his start in the business. He's New Japan born, New Japan bred. He's out of their
That makes
system.
sense.
Yep.
I got it.
So I mean the thing is that they're taking a chance. Now is they got all these guys leaving. They had Prince Devitt leave, they had AJ Styles leave, they had Cody Rhodes leave, they had Kenny Omega leave. Well, the thing is that if you're gonna have a top gaijin, you need a top gaijin. You really do. And you've invested several years of New Japan programming into this guy already. Take a chance. Just take a chance. That's what they're doing.
So, what was that company that you wrestled for in Japan most recently? Is there going to be more appearances in Japan for you, or was that a one-off?
Well, that's Jimmy Suzuki's Tokyo Championship Wrestling, and formerly known as Diamond Stars, but now Tokyo Championship Wrestling. Um, that's a pretty much that's up to Jimmy and to the people out there, because the thing is, it's like the business is really it comes and goes. I mean, it's like I'd been away for 4 years from Japan. I went back now last September. I was received like a king. They remembered exactly who I was. It was nostalgic. It was magical at the same time, and they had like Masato Tanaka, they had Atsushi Onita, they had Sabu on the card, and they put me and Tajiri in the main event. Regardless, they put us in the main event because I think they knew that we would produce at the end of the night, right? So it's like, what's that last taste that you're gonna leave in people's mouths? Okay, these guys right here, put them up there. So the thing is that I'd hope I'd be back. I mean, I love Japan. It's the number one country for me in pro wrestling. The Japanese people have I was there for a half a year. In 2010, I debuted in, it was the 24th of July, 2010. I debuted at the Shinjuku Face Arena, and I defeated Hajime Ohara on the afternoon show, and then I beat Tajiri for the FCF championship. That's the Finnish championship on the evening show the same night. And by the time that Weekly Pro Wrestling Magazine had their year-end poll at the end of 2010, and the results came in right at the beginning of 2011, I was voted in the top five gaijin in the entire country, alongside Kenny Omega and other people at that time. And I'd been there for under 6 months. What does that prove? Right?
Yeah.
National press. And people took me to heart. And I asked them, I said, I would ask people that I knew there, like Japanese people. I'd ask the production people. I'd ask, whoever. I said, why do you think these Japanese people have taken so well to me? I mean, why do you think I'm so popular here? And all of their answers were synonymous. They said, it's charisma. You got that, like, the untouchable charisma. And out of all the aspects that a pro wrestler needs, you need to have the look, you need to have the skills, and you need to have the charisma, because either you don't have a fighting chance in hell unless you have these three things. Out of all these three, the most important by far is charisma. Right? Hulk Hogan, Abdullah the Butcher, Tiger Jeet Singh. None of these guys are great wrestlers, but they all got boatloads of charisma. Right?
Right.
So the thing is, in Japan, number one thing you need, I think, in the wrestling business too. Number one thing, Hulk Hogan, give him, points as a wrestler, 2 points, 1 point out of 10 for being a wrestler, like Lou Thesz said, right? But for charisma, give him 10.
Yeah. So now you're doing your own company again. You're still wrestling fairly regularly, from what I can tell. Any thoughts on maybe talking to Jericho about AEW, or is that something that you wouldn't be interested in?
Well, I'll tell you what. You tell me, as a guy that runs his own wrestling company, because you got GWN, right?
Yeah, Great North Wrestling.
Right. So if you're looking to bank on the future, are you looking to sign guys that are 45 years old?
That's true, but if they want to get the Finnish audience, you're the guy.
Well, that's the thing, but do they want the Finnish audience? I mean,
that's the question.
The funny thing is, I was, a year and a half ago, or just over a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, I was wrestling in Stockholm, Sweden. I took the Nordik Wrestling Championship. That's like covering Sweden, Finland, Denmark, and Norway. And Seaman Canyon was there from WWE. And he came up, when my match started, he came up right to ringside, and he watched the match literally off the apron. And for half an hour, I beat this kid, Timmy Force, to a pulp. And anyway, I took the championship that night. And Seaman Canyon says to me after the match, he says, that wasn't your first rodeo. I said, no, it wasn't. I've been doing this for a while. He said, that's a hell of a match, man. He's like, and even the promoter, this guy, Henry Sahlgren, or Chris Sahlgren from Stockholm Wrestling, said Seaman was so high on your match, and all he would do is he was fawning over it, how great it was. And I thought to myself, well, if they want me, this is my chance. This is the guy that signs everybody to contracts for Vince. If they would have wanted me, they could have offered me the contract right then and there. But they didn't. I was 44 years old when I had that match. Now I'm 45, right? So the thing is that, you're looking at a company like AEW, okay, well, maybe they might bring you in for, I don't know, but it's unlikely, right? It's like Dave Finlay, is great, and I love Dave. He's a fantastic wrestler. But when he went to Vince, or when he debuted for Vince on SmackDown 2006, I think he was 45 years old. I think he was like my age, right? Now, if Dave wasn't the god of European wrestling, and if Dave wasn't maybe also Irish, it might not be that he would have been signed at 45. You know what I mean?
And he had also been on WCW TV, where you haven't been on, like, American TV.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
So he was known.
Yeah, so he was known to some degree, right? Even though he wasn't like featured as a main talent on WCW, but still.
Yeah.
But my point here being that they have very few guys, just because Rey Mysterio made it in pro wrestling as a guy who's a undersized wrestler, doesn't mean that all the other undersized wrestlers of the world have a fighting chance with Vince. It doesn't mean that same thing. Just because Dave Finlay got signed at 45 to SmackDown doesn't mean that other guys out there at the age of 45 have that same chance. It just doesn't mean that, right?
Even 35, they won't really look at it, I don't think, to be honest with you. Unless you're AJ Styles.
Well, that's the whole thing. Unless you made your name, unless you've already like globally put your name on the map, that the internet knows who you are, like all around the world knows who you are, you don't have that chance. Samoa Joe wouldn't be there, and also I don't think that AJ either would be there at this point if they hadn't had made their name so well. And then
Yeah.
you're also considering. I mean, I trained a guy from Sweden. He was the 2014. He took the in the Swedish submission wrestling championships. He took the bronze medal, and he got a try. He came to me for training. He came in February of 2015, and I trained him for like I think on 3 different occasions for like an extended weekend. I trained him like, he'd come to Finland on the weekends, and I trained him like 3 different times. And by April of 2015, he got his first WWE tryout, right? He's a big guy, right? And they told him straight, he was like 36 at the time, I think. Said, if you were 27, we'd sign you right now, but you're 36. You're 36, man. And he was physically gifted. He had the size, he had the look, he had like everything. He just didn't have the age.
Right.
So it's like they're very peculiar about who they sign and what they're looking for. It's like Vince. If you consider Vince, they're looking for 10 years out of a guy on average. 10 good years. And with Kofi Kingston, they got like about 11, 12 right now. John Cena, Randy Orton, they got about 13, 14, 15 so far, right? So the thing is that they've gotten their investment back. But the guys that they sign, they're looking for that 10-year investment. When they make that contract with you, if you're between the age of 20 and 30, you still got your best years ahead of you.
That's true. That's a good way of explaining it for people that don't know and people that don't understand out there.
That's it.
So where can people follow you if they want to look up your company or if they want to follow what you're up to on social media?
Well, you go to my website. That's starbuck.fi. It's not like the coffee chain. It's not Starbucks. It's StarBuck, like Lieutenant Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica, right? Starbuck.fi.
Is that where you got the name from?
Yeah, originally I did, but then I gave it my own twist. And I said, you know what? Star is self-explanatory. Buck is Texas slang for like, real man, right? That guy's a buck, right? So it's a combination of 2 words. That's why I capitalized the B, even though Starbuck is spelled together. The B in the middle is capitalized. Yeah. That's why it's a combination of Star and Buck, because Buck means that guy's a real buck.
And you probably came up with that name before Starbucks really took off.
Oh, hell yeah. I didn't even know about Starbucks coffee when I took the name. Never knew.
Right. Because a couple people I've told about you, like they automatically think about the coffee. Why did he name himself after the coffee? But that explains it.
No, it's all the same, It's like, but anyway, yeah. But yeah, so starbuck.fi, if you want to follow me, go to facebook.com, and on Facebook it's The Rebel Starbuck. You can find me there. My real name, Michael Majalahti. You can find me with that. Then you can also go to YouTube, and my channel is StarBuck Official, or my wrestling company is Slam Rest. That's SLAMWRES. On Twitter, either StarBuck Official, or I think it's Rebel Starbuck, by the way, on Twitter, I think the handle. Yeah, Rebel Starbuck, sorry. And then my company again, /SlamRes. On Instagram, you can find me at Rebel Starbuck, or then at /SlamRes. That's pretty much it, man.
So for this show, I've watched your ad. Maybe you'll let us put the ad up where
Sure.
You're walking through the gym. And is that your wife you slap on the butt, or is that just a model?
No, that's a girl that she won the Miss Boom Boom contest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's the
you sold me with that. You sold me on the company with just that alone.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing, As nowadays with this Me Too campaign and all this toxic masculinity and people like scared to death of being a man, and just like, it's like, I don't know what happened to society all of a sudden, but it's pathetic, right? So it's like, I think it's more so a statement that, if you're the bull of the woods, you want to be, a buck or whatever. Just, wrestling has always been over the top, right? It's always been anti-culture, counterculture. It's always been, a fringe thing. So I think that you got to resonate that through your presentation. And that's why I think that we went over the top, and especially nowadays with this political correctness. You know, you're supposed to be, you know, this like ambiguous, neither male nor female. At least in Finland, that's the way it is. I think it's turning that way in Canada too. And the thing is, I'm so against that. I'm so dead set against that mentality. It's like I believe that we're inherently born as men and women. I think that the good Lord above and whatever it is that you choose to believe in, but we got XX and XY chromosomes, and I think that there's a certain polarity between the sexes, and I think that men have always been the hunters and the women have always been the prey. So the thing is that in this way, you know, even that promo when I slapped the girl in the butt, it's just a man being a man. That's really what it is. Old school, man. It's old
But
school.
I was bringing that up because it's very professionally shot, and it seems like this company is going all out with their presentation and their production values.
Well, that's the whole thing. I want to present a high-end product. What I believe is this about pro wrestling. I was talking to Marty Jones out of the UK, one of the greatest wrestlers ever out of the UK. And I got this podcast myself that I run called Shooting the Shiz At. Anybody wants to check it out, go to Spotify or go to iTunes and just punch in Shooting the Shiz At. You find us. But I interviewed Marty when Dynamite Kid passed away. and Marty said something about, because wrestling now, we're in the third boom period of professional wrestling currently, right? The first boom was 85 with Vince McMahon, WrestleMania 1, Cyndi Lauper, Mr. T. Second one was 97 with the Monday Night Wars. And the third boom period now has been in the last 2 years. And I don't know if it's the streaming services. I don't know if it's New Japan. I don't know what exactly. Maybe it's just Chris Jericho. Maybe it's Chris breaking off from Vince and just making wrestling hot around the world. You know, but it's like we're literally now in the third boom period of pro wrestling globally. And Marty said the only way to make wrestling red hot and to make your product stand out nowadays is to use the best wrestlers out there. Don't take the cheap ones. Don't take the ones that are like, you know, the ones that are green as grass or whatever. You take the ones that have something really distinct to offer, the ones that are damn good at what they do, the ones that have their package together. The presentation is right. And you use that, you run with that, and then what you do is you make sure your production values are top notch. Right? You want to be seen as a star? Well, look like a star. Right? That's the way it is. You want people to view you as something special, you've got to come across as something special. So therefore your audio's got to be tight, right? It can't be like the room is echoing and you know, on video you can hear like, you know, the PA or whatever is just shit. You can't do it like that.
Right.
So you've got to have solid sound. You've got to have solid video. You've got to have professionally shot video, not with your cell phone, not taking promos with your cell phone and just, you know, hey, I'm going to be there on Friday night. I'm going to kick your ass. That's not professional. You go and you have a camera crew shoot your shit. Put the time in. It's an investment. It's going to cost you some money, but it's a return on investment down the line, because the thing is, value comes to value. That's the way it is. People will invest in you. I've got now 22 companies in Finland. It's unheard of. 22 sponsoring my Slam Wrestling Finland Mega Launch event next Friday on the 22nd of March here in Helsinki. We've never, ever had 22 sponsors to date. I think like in the entire history of Finnish professional wrestling over 16 years. Now for one show, I've got 22.
Wow. That's amazing.
It's amazing.
That's amazing anywhere.
That's amazing anywhere, yeah. And the thing is that I think it's because they believe in what I'm doing and they believe in the effort that I'm putting into it, because I've been bleeding this every day of my life now for the past 4 months. I've been putting in days that end at 12 o'clock at night. It's only me. I don't have an organization. It's just me, Slam Wrestling Finland, Michael Majalahti, the Rebel StarBuck. That's it. But I think that when you do it with passion, and people see that passion in you, value comes to value, and just as water seeks its own level. And that's why I think that people, and I cannot discount the blessing of the good Lord above. I'm a born-again Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ as personal Lord and Savior. And I will give credit to the good Lord upstairs for every single step that I take, because all of my steps are blessed by him. And the thing is that without his blessing, I would not have been able to do this. It's because God opens the doors of opportunity in your life. If you hand over the reins of your life, is it like he becomes like the manager in your life. The doors of opportunity start to open up because he's the one that opens them up for you. And with me, that's exactly what has happened. Without the blessing of the good Lord above, I would not be here today.
Right. I guess growing up in a religious family, that was always part of your life.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't quite go that way, because the thing is that as you mature and as you reach your teens and your young adult years and whatnot, we're all tested in this life, man. You have many times where you can turn your back on what you know, and you can forsake the teachings of your parents. You can go back on whatever, and just choose your own path in life. But I've chosen personally, time and time again, year after year, even if I've fallen off the horse, I got back up on the horse, and I got my shit straight. Because the thing is that I believe in my heart. I have a conviction in my heart in what I believe in. And that's why I think that, I have a serendipity that follows me where I go. I do. I have a blessing, and I credit that to the Lord upstairs, the good Lord. I do. I give a flying fuck what people think.
Right. Well, I can't deny that there's anything higher out there, because there's many times I should have died. So someone's obviously looking out for me. But to close this off, you've been very generous with your time. I know you're really busy this week. But is there anything you want to say to close this off?
Well, I'll tell you what, like the Slam Wrestling Finland Mega Launch show, now it's the biggest show ever of international professional wrestling in the Nordics of Europe. I've got top pro wrestlers, male and female, from 10 different countries coming in for Slam Wrestling Finland's Mega Launch on the 22nd, this coming Friday of March. And that's in 7 big matches. Basically, the concept is that I'm offering like a really clear-cut picture of what all pro wrestling can offer to companies that would want to buy a show. So I've got a 3-way match. I got triple threat for the women's title. Shauna, who is from Portugal, she has the Queen of Southside Championship from England, and she's bringing that to Helsinki to defend against Natalia Markova of Russia and against Betty Rose of Sweden. Then I've got a tag team match on the card, the Estonians against the Finns. I've got a hardcore match. So I've got the #1 hardcore wrestler in general out of Russia, Ivan Markov, against a guy here in Finland that I trained like about 11 years ago, called Hamo the Wild Man. He's done really well for himself all around the world. He was even on SmackDown television. He had a vignette with Booker T in 2013. So, I mean, he's done rather well. Then I've got Starkadder, another guy here from Finland. He's been wrestling now for since 2004. So that's like 15 years now. I got him against this guy called the Swedish Playboy, or the Stockholm Playboy, Ken Malmsteen. I've got myself against Fabio Ferrari from Italy, and the former welterweight champion of Europe, boxing champion of Europe, Juho Haapoja, is going to be our special guest referee in that match. And then I got Tiny Iron against Demolition Davies, a battle of King Kong versus Godzilla. I mean, Demolition Davies, 190 kilo, 190 tall, against Tiny Iron, who's like the former bodyguard of Beyonce, Black Eyed Peas, Rihanna, and 50 Cent. And this guy, he's a big black guy from England. He's 192 tall, and he weighs like 127 kilo. So it's literally King Kong versus Godzilla. And then I got one other match, a big man versus small man match on the card. So I've got this Finnish luchador called Shemeka against a guy from Hungary called the Renegade David Turger. So it's a really good 7-match card. Every match offers something different to the people. It's going to be on national television. I've got I scored a contract with the biggest platform in all the Nordics, like as far as like broadcasting goes, and they're putting it out.
Wow, that's impressive. So it's going to be a one-time special.
Yeah, well, let's see if it bites, or if I should say that if it bites well, people actually they'll bite into it, and if they watch, if the numbers are good that night, it's possible that we can do it again, which I'm really hoping. Yeah. So this is we've never had this good of, let's say, like the foundation could not be any better right now. The potential is enormous in Finland because we're a 6 million person country. So for 6 million people, national like exposure for the biggest wrestling show ever in Northern Europe. I couldn't be more blessed. I couldn't ask for more. All I'm hoping for is that if the good Lord above would still give one more thing to me, that would be a sellout this coming Friday night.
Well, best of luck with that. And it hasn't worked out that you've ever come up to Canada while there's been a Great North Wrestling event happening, because we only run about 4 to 8 times a year. But hopefully one of these days we'll get you on a card out here as well.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I was there this past October, and I hit you up. I asked if you got anything happening. You didn't have anything happening then, but I'd love to come out there and wrestle, man. Especially, I'd love to wrestle in Timmins, Ontario before I wrap up my career.
Well, you know what? We may have to. I think it would do well there. We may have to do a custom one of you and I both maybe co-promoting it in that town, and I do the legwork down here, and then you come out for it. Because I think that town didn't Hulk Hogan wrestle Andre there once, many, many years ago, I heard.
I don't know, maybe in the 70s or something, maybe early 80s. I'm not sure.
For some reason, and this is way off topic, but like Bill Eadie used to randomly run Timmins, I heard.
Really?
Which is really strange, yeah. Of Demolition.
Yeah,
for some reason, Timmins was his town.
Well, then also I want to wrestle in Thunder Bay, because Thunder Bay has a very special place in my heart. Right. I lived there twice, and I've got a lot of friends in Thunder Bay, and I think that I would have really good local support coming out to see me in Thunder Bay.
Well, we had 1,500 and 3,000 people at our 2 events there, but the issue is the flights are so damn expensive for everyone to come in.
I know, it's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's literally in the middle of nowhere. Kevin Nash actually drove there from somewhere in Michigan. He was filming that stripper movie. I forget what Magnificent Mike or something, yeah. Magic Mike. But I remember he was almost in tears. Like, he left me a message. He was lost or something. He's like, I'm in the forest. I'm tired. I haven't slept. I don't know where I am. I almost hit a moose. But he ended up making it. But you know how you could have a breakdown when you're in the forest?
Yeah. Yeah, because the thing is that I remember actually I talked to it was 2009. I was there before last fall. I had one trip earlier in 2009, and I talked to James Murray. Yeah, and he said that you guys had been there just recently, back then.
Yeah, you just missed us because we came in 2009 and 2010. But who knows? We might be back there one day. The big crowd is definitely tempting, but we would need to organize it properly. And of course, Vampiro's also from that area. He wrestled on our last event there. Did you ever cross paths with him?
Yeah. I know Vampiro. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't detect that you guys are friends.
Well, you guys... well, we're not tight. We're not tight at all. But things we have met. So.
Right.
Yeah.
You see, I thought I was on good terms with him, but then I heard him saying something about me in a shoot interview, so I don't know if I could trust him in the future, but I would definitely still allow him to be on a show or use him on a show if we ever came back there, because he is popular in Thunder Bay. But thanks again for giving this time to us, and I wish you all the best on your show. I hope you get the sellout on Friday.
Hey, Lord willing, man. Hey, thanks for the time, and thanks for having me on.
Yes, you're welcome, and thank you for listening to GNW's The Hannibal TV Podcast. We know you dig it, so you'll do yourself a favor and subscribe to The Hannibal TV on YouTube. While you're at it, follow The Hannibal TV on Instagram and Twitter. Like us on Facebook, that's Great North Wrestling, and visit our official website at thehannibaltv.com.